we're going to be using this toned paper to create a chalk and charcoal portrait. So I'm going to pop the reference up next to my workspace now, so you can have a look at what we're actually working from. We're going to be working initially in charcoal, and then ultimately we'll be adding kind of layers of chalk. And it follows on a bit from my most recent course on OCAD, which was our tonal landscape in charcoal, where we used a mixture of chalk and charcoal. So we're basically going to be using, just for the lightest portions, so you can sort of see on the glasses we've got some highlights, the nose has some quite light sections, the ears have a few highlights. So we're going to be using just ever so slight touches of white chalk, just to lift slightly off the yellow of the paper. So you can see the backing paper that I've got behind this on the board is kind of more of a pure white, and we've got this kind of just subtly sort of creamy toned, ivory toned paper that we're working with. And we're going to be starting today, we're just doing the block in. We're going to be using Nitrum Charcoal in B. So I've just got my sanding block that I'm going to start sanding my charcoal on, so I want to get it to a reasonable point. It doesn't have to be super sharp, because we're just kind of feeling things out and getting it blocked in today. Let's get that sanded. So I've got a bit of a point now on the charcoal, and the last thing I'm going to be using is just a kneadable eraser. So I can use that, as we always do, just to kind of conform it into different shapes, and that's certainly sufficient for erasing. So you can see tonally it's fairly straightforward. We've got the dark of the clothing, which is going to be kind of blocked in really heavily. We've got a kind of dark to mid grey behind, and then tones on the face vary from sort of as black as the black of the clothing, and obviously up to the lightest points on the sort of foreground element, or the front of the face, we should say. So yeah, today basically what we want to look for is a very basic block-in of the overall shapes of the head. We're not going to worry too much about getting super accurate values today, that'll be the next session. But we want to start with the placement of the head. So I'm working with the paper horizontally, and I'm going to place the head sort of about here, so not quite central, and a little bit right of central, so there's a bit more space in front of the face. And I'm going to start just by blocking, or just by kind of laying in the top of his beanie there. So we've got top of his beanie, and then sort of we can feel around a bit. Start feeling for his chin. That swivels up to front of the face and back of the head there. I'm sort of thinking of it fairly sort of gesturally at the moment. So not too worried about sort of super accurate proportions. We'll find that fairly sort of easily as we carry on working. I'm just working lightly, thinking about kind of lines that flow through the image compositionally. Starting to get the clothing in there a bit. The hoop of his neckline. Where the beanie sort of drops down. I can block a basic little shape in here for the ear. Blocked in eye shape there. So it's not too bad what we've got in place now for general shapes in the sort of torso and the head here. I want to think a little bit about where this jawline drops down now. Bottom of the chin there. So we're starting to get a lot of the major shapes blocked in now. So we've got shape of the ear. We can start massing things in pretty soon. The last thing I want to do is just get a bit of a breakdown of the front of the face now. So we had those glasses sort of in place. We had our general sort of brow shape blocked in as well. And that gives us a bit of guidance about where we then want the nose to sort of stick out. And that angles back in a bit. Crosses over the top lip. So top lip juts forward. And initially we can keep that more like a sort of simpler shape, so the lips can be sort of combined. So now I've got that in place, can be a little bit more specific with shape and position of the glasses. it's not too bad generally, I think, for those shapes. Something we might reassess a little bit later, but for now we'll keep it as is. So it's not too bad for that profile. So the final thing we're going to do today is just sort of finalize these shapes. We're going to get them shaded in, which will give us a good basis for the next session, where we'll be refining those shapes and then starting to work in the sort of work with the variations in tone within these shadow shapes. So as always, we're working or looking for those shapes that are distinctly dark, so those dark shapes aren't receiving any direct light. And they're fairly clear on this one. So obviously if we start kind of with the big obvious shapes, we've got the beanies just pretty much totally black. So we can just work straight across that. And as I say, at the moment we're not too worried about the specific tone we're going for. All we care about is the fact that we are getting a tone in place. But we're going to be working a lot over this, so doesn't have to be super accurate or anything like that. I'm also not going to go sort of into too much detail with the actual shapes, specific shapes within the ear. We'll be doing that later as well. So we're just going for the big broad shapes at the moment. And likewise down here, all of these sort of darker shapes can just merge together. So this dark shape underneath the jaw, that just merges into the clothing. for the time being. Given how contrasty this image is, it'll probably roughly stay kind of completely black down there anyway, but the only thing that might stand out a bit is you can see the collar of the shirt, or the top, just stand out slightly, so we'd probably leave that just a bit lighter as well, but mostly this is going to go pretty much pure black as the drawing progresses. Keep that nice and distinct. So we're starting to think a little bit about those connections, but not too concerned about them, just going for this just major statement of tonal variation for the time being. So we've also got these dark shapes in the eyes where the eyebrow is. Dark shape just underneath those glasses. That's looking good. And we've got our shadow shape underneath that nose. We can put in pretty simply. Shadow shape under the top lip, and then our shadow shape that drops just below that bottom lip. These shapes through the cheekbone, they're not quite shadows, but we can just sort of start to think about their structure, how stuff's connecting. That stuff we'll get into later. But yeah, that's pretty much all we're going for today. So in your first session, this is what you want to be aiming for. It's a good sort of point to take a break as well at this stage of the drawing, so it's a nice kind of natural place to stop. Basically, we just want our shapes blocked in. You can finish just by kind of going around, reaffirming those shapes. Just be nice and definite on the boundary. We will be reassessing these a bit later, or next week as I say as well, but for now, if you're pretty happy with it, you can go a bit more definite like this. It's good. And that's pretty good. So I'm happy with that as a point to stop today. So when you're working on your own, you want to just look for a profile, ideally like this, reasonable amount of contrast, nice clear shapes. This one's particularly good because there's a nice flat tone behind. But you want something like this. I got mine off unsplash.com, so if you check out Unsplash, it's always a good repository for references that are nice quality. But yeah, you basically want to go for this level of detail in your first session. So you want overall proportions, and you want to divide the light shapes and the dark shapes, which is something you'll see throughout all my videos if you ever look through all the videos on the OCAD YouTube. So yeah, that's it for today. As always, you can subscribe to our YouTube to get access to my videos and my colleagues' videos, and you can click through to OCAD itself if you want to sign up to any courses where you'll get actual tuition and feedback from a range of expert teachers. But yeah, that's it for today, and I'll see you guys soon.